What's going on, guys? BouseFeenux here, and when Monster Hunter World released, I told myself that I would not make weapon guides because there's already a bunch of YouTubers that do that, and in my opinion, they do it way better than I ever could. But despite all that, you guys have been asking for weapon videos, so I thought about it, and I decided that a lot of the videos out there are geared towards veteran players that already know a lot about the game, and when I was new, I didn't really understand them at all. So what I wanted to do with this series, if it becomes one, is make guide videos on the weapons for people that are completely new to Monster Hunter. And with that, I wanted to start with the weapon that I'm most comfortable with, and the one that you guys have been asking about a lot, the Charge Blade. You guys have seen this monstrosity of a weapon in most of my Monster Hunter content so far, and a lot of you have been asking how to use it. So, let's jump in. Okay, so I gotta be honest with you guys, I did have a big, script written out detailing all this stuff, and it started to get really complicated, and I didn't like that. I wanted to keep this video really simple because, like I said, I'd seen a lot of videos starting out playing Monster Hunter, and they got really complicated really quick. So what I wanted to do is kind of just show you this in an unscripted way, and then we'll go back to, the scripted content. But there's just a lot here, and I want to make sure I get it all for you in a nice cohesive format that kind of flows well. But anyway, so we have the Charge Blade, right? It's a sword and shield. It transforms into an axe. That's really cool. I mean, how many weapons can you say that you've played that are like this, besides, the trick weapons in Bloodborne or whatever? But really cool weapon, really unique. It's got a lot going for it, and it's got a lot of mechanics. So let's take a look. Let's start simple with the sword and shield combos here, and I'll show you how those work. So pressing triangle, you get a weak slash. You press triangle after the weak slash, you get a return stroke. And the third hit in that combo is a nice little round slash here. And when you do that attack, you'll notice you throw your shield in front of you. So here's that again. You throw your shield in front of you. That gives you what's called a guard point. Now, a guard point is basically like attacking and guarding at the same time. If you time this right and a monster is attacking you while you're doing this guard point, a lot of times you'll just block the attack, and if the attack is weak enough, you'll still do the follow through for the attack that you were doing. Now, the Charge Blade does have a couple of these guard points, and we'll cover those as we get to them. But your first one here is the spinning slash. Now, you can get to the spinning slash after pretty much any attack if you hop. So any attack you can do a side dodge after. So you can do this. And after you hop, you just press triangle, and you can infinitely chain these spinning slashes together. If you don't want to hop, you've got to do the 3-hit combo here. So a quick way to get to that spinning slash into the guard point is just to attack with any attack, and then the spinning slash. So you can even do it after this attack. Dodge, spinning slash. So pretty much after any Charge Blade attack, you can hop to the side. After any sword and shield Charge Blade attack. It doesn't really work that way for the axe, but we'll cover that here in a second. So anyway, that's pretty much those basic attacks right there. Now, if you want to close the distance on an enemy, you have the option of the forward slash, which comes in two ways. If you're sprinting with your weapon sheathed and you press triangle, that gives you a forward slash. If your weapon is out and you want to close the distance, triangle circle. That gives you the forward slash. And from that, you go into your return stroke and the spinning slash. Or you can just do a forward slash, hop to the side, and do a spinning slash. So just like that. Pretty simple, right? So you get forward slash, return stroke, spinning slash. That's the dodge forward. And then you have just the regular one, like this. All right, so now that we kind of got the basics down, let's take a look at some of the more advanced mechanics of the sword and shield mode. So you have circle attacks by holding down the circle button. And again, sorry Xbox users, just try to translate for me if you can. You have this charge attack move. Now, if you hold the circle button down and you release it at the right time, you'll get a nice charge double slash. If you let it go too early, the attack is a lot weaker. So there you go. In previous games, this attack used to have a guard point. In Monster Hunter Generations, if you were using what was called the adept style, this move gave you a guard point, but I've been practicing it forever, trying to get it, and I'm pretty sure they've taken it out, because I've gotten the other guard points. I just, for some reason, can't get this one. So I think they took that one out because it was only exclusive to the adept style for the Charge Blade in Monster Hunter Gen. But anyway, if you hold the charge for too long, you get this weak slash as well, just the charge rising slash. You don't ever really want to use that. There's really no reason to, because the charge attack is fairly quick, as you see here. It doesn't take long to execute. You can usually land that. But if you notice, what that does is up in the top left-hand corner, you got those little potion vials. Those are called the files, and they're really important for how the charge blade works. You use them in a lot of different ways. But when you're in sword and shield mode, you'll notice that those files change color. They'll go from white to yellow to red. When they're red and they're blinking, let me see if I can get this real quick here. When they're red, your sword changes color. It's all fiery and electric and, you know, got some crazy looking stuff. It looks ultra powerful, but the truth is here, any attack you do with your red files that are blinking like that will bounce off the monster. It doesn't matter how sharp your weapon is or how soft the monster part is or how vulnerable he is or anything. No matter what you do, it'll bounce off. It'll even bounce off this barrel over here. So there you go. It'll do a little bit of damage, but you don't want to do that. Bouncy weapon is never good. It always leaves you open to an attack from the monster. So what you need to do at this point is hold the R2 button to guard and then charge your files. So real quick, now that we're on that topic, the charge blade is able to guard when in sword and shield mode, and you have the third strongest guard in the game. So it pretty much goes lance is the strongest, gun lance after that, I think, and then charge blade after that. Now, when you're in red axe mode, which we'll talk about in a second, your guard is pretty much as strong as the lance is. And when you guard, you've got to be careful because this will deplete your weapon sharpness if you're hit. When you're in red axe mode, which again, we'll talk about in a second, your sharpness does not go down. So speaking of sharpness, I need to go ahead and sharpen my weapon real quick. All right, so review time real fast. You have the 3 attacks. You have the lunging attack into the other 2 attacks. You can do an attack, hop to the side, and do the spinning slash, which has the guard point we talked about. You also have the charge slash. You have, this is a new attack, the charge slash into the shield thrust. The shield thrust is a little bit new, but you can do this after any attack. It doesn't have to just be the charged one. And that's just your triangle circle after any attack. So you can lunge forward, do a shield thrust, so triangle, circle, gives you that combo. And what that does is if you have files, it'll use one of them to stun the monster, but it doesn't actually use up a file. There's still an animation that plays where a file chunks out of the side of it, like a spent shell casing, if you see that here. It's a little hard to catch, but you can maybe catch that if you're quick. See how that pops out and goes onto the ground whenever we do that? So that does do a little bit of stun damage to the monster, and it has what's called Mind's Eye. Mind's Eye is an armor stat. That means pretty much no matter how dull your weapon is or how hard the monster part is, that attack will never bounce off the enemy. So this attack will always do damage and it will never bounce off the enemy. And you notice there we get a little, it's a little double hit there. It does 11 and 8 damage with this weapon. Bam, bam. So you get 2 attacks there. So that's pretty much it for the sword and shield mode. Now, if you want to go into axe mode, there's a couple different ways you can do that. With your weapon drawn here, your sword and shield out, you can hold guard and press triangle, and that'll do this big, nice, heavy morph slash. Nice downward attack, downward chop. And to get back into sword and shield mode, all you do is press R2 again. So guard and triangle gives you the morph slash. That does a nice, hefty amount of damage there. And you can switch back to put the weapon on your back by holding R1 and sprinting. Now, if you want to change into axe mode while sprinting, all you need to do is hold R or press R2, and that'll give you the axe smash, which is really nice. It's a really good gap closer. It does a bunch of damage. It's a nice little opening attack that you can do when you're running up to a monster. Just slam on him like that. Go back into your sword mode. Charge attack, charge your files. That's a really good way to charge up your files really quickly when fighting a monster. Now, you don't charge up files when you're using axe mode. You can swing around. I'll show you here in a second. You can swing around with axe mode all day long, and your files will never change color. Now, you do have these 2 attacks. You have the rising slash and the overhead smash. These are infinitely repeatable. You just do them over and over and over again. Pretty much all day long. You never get tired of that. So that's one capability of the charge blade. What you can also do is if you're holding the thumbstick, the left thumbstick, and you're rushing forward, you'll do the dash slam, which is a really nice gap closer for getting in close to the monster, because when you have your axe mode out, I don't know if you noticed, but you're incredibly slow because this weapon is super heavy. So this is a really good way to dash into the monster, close the distance, and do some damage. Now, after that, you can follow up with what are called the elemental discharge attacks. If you have files stored in your weapon, which you see here, you'll do the elemental discharge. So you have 1 and 2. 1 just discharges 1 file, 2 discharges 2 files, and then you have the amped element attack. So you can do that either by pressing circle a 3rd time in that combo. So let me get some files real quick here. I'll show you how that works because I'm about empty, and it won't work if you're empty on files here. So also, I want to note too real quick, when you charge up your files, a red charge will charge all 5 files, and a yellow charge will only get 3 of them. So if you have empty files, a red charge is pretty much the way you want to go. So let's get back in axe mode. So we have the element discharge 1. Oops, that's 2. Hang on. You'll do the element discharge 2 if you if you do this. This will give you the element discharge 2. So if you do any kind of triangle attack with the axe, it'll go straight into element discharge 2. But if you're just standing still from neutral, circle will give you 1, another circle will give you 2, and a 3rd one will give you the amped element discharge, which gives you 3 little static pulses there, the pap, pap, pap. So that does massive stun damage to a monster, and if you get enough of them, it will KO the monster. He'll fall over, he'll be toppled, and he'll be pretty much at your mercy. So anyway, back to axe mode real fast. I want to show you guys one more thing that's super important to charge blade here, and that is the red shield mode. So you can get to the amped element discharge just by pressing triangle and circle like it says on the left side of the screen here, and that'll give you this animation here. Bam. Big ol' smash. That's pretty cool, right? Well, it can be better. So before this attack finishes, what you can do is you can press R2. And that gives you the elemental round slash. Now, did you notice at the top left-hand corner of the screen, our shield icon turned red? A red shield icon means you're in red shield mode. Now, from here, there's a lot of different things you can do. Anytime you guard against a monster or get a guard point, it'll basically be like you executed a elemental, the elemental discharge level 1. So he'll get a little bit of stun damage when he attacks you. He'll take a little bit of damage from your guard. Really nice. And like I said earlier, in red axe mode, your shield is basically as good as a land shield now. It's pretty close. Now, one other thing I want to mention before I get way too far ahead of myself is when you transform into axe mode, that's a guard point right there. So I'm going to hit this bomb real quick, and I'm going to show you how that works. Got to time it right. So you notice how I went to go transform into the morph slash, and the bomb hit my shield, and it gave me a little static pulse there. Oh, see, I timed that one wrong. So that right there, you notice how the shield flashed and there was like the little static pulse, like I did an elemental attack, like where I discharge a file. That's what'll happen to a monster when it attacks you. So if it headbutts you, it'll take that damage straight to its head. You'll be knocked back if the attack is weak enough, but you'll still do a little bit of damage to him when he goes to attack you. So that's kind of how guard points work. On top of that, as if that wasn't enough, your sharpness no longer degrades when you block. So it's really, really important to be able to get into red axe mode or red shield mode as soon as possible. And with Monster Hunter World, there is a new mechanic called the red sword mode. When you go to charge your files and you hold triangle and you get that little burst of electricity, that is the perfect time to let go of triangle, and now you're in red sword mode. What this does is it does stun damage on each attack. You also have Mind's Eye on all of your sword attacks, which again means you never bounce. So if you're fighting a monster with a really hard head, this is a really good way to do a lot of damage and break those head parts, because you'll still do basically your normal amount of damage and you won't be bouncing off. So this is really, really nice. Now another thing, as if that wasn't enough, your super amped element discharge is crazy powerful now. Bam. That will take all of your files and will unload all of them into a monster. So before, that amped element discharge just used one file and it gave you 3 hits. Well, this will use all of them. Now, One thing to note, though, is being in red sword mode drains your sharpness incredibly fast. So we'll talk about armor skills here in a second, but just make sure that you're keeping an eye on your sharpness gauge. When you're in green sharpness, you're good, but when you're in yellow sharpness, you'll start to do a lot less damage. But that is pretty much it. So again, to review, when you're in axe mode, you've got the rising slash, the overhead smash, and then when you're out of combos and you're just standing still, you've got the element discharge 1, element discharge 2, and then the amped element discharge, and those deal stun damage and use files when you have them. If you're in axe mode and you do an attack, it immediately takes you to element discharge 2, and then when you're in element discharge 2, you go straight into the amped element discharge. So there you go with that. Now, you can remember, you can get straight to the amped element discharge by pressing the triangle and circle. Another thing that's really important, you can get to that amped element discharge from sword mode. So if you attack, you do the shield thrust, and then you press triangle and circle again after the shield thrust, you'll go straight into your amped element discharge. Now what this is really good for, so let's say that we have red files and we have a full thing of files, which I'm trying to get here, bear with me. Charge up our files. We have all 5 because that was a red charge. And we do the shield thrust. And we do the amped element discharge. You can press R out of that for an elemental round slash to put you straight into red sword mode as well. So anytime you do that amped element discharge and you have full files, you can just throw those files straight into your sword by pressing R2 to do the elemental round slash. Now, the amount of files you have determines how long your red shield mode lasts. More files equals more time. I'm not exactly sure on the amount of time. They may have changed it from game to game, but 5 files gives you a lot of red shield time. I think it's like 3 minutes or something like that. It's super crazy. But that is pretty much how that works. Now, as far as like bread and butter combos go, you want to get in on the monster. I usually go for the lunging slash. I don't know why that barrel is so hard. So lunging slash, charge. That charges your files up real quick. If you have red axe mode, you want to make sure you get into red shield mode. And then you're pretty much good to go from there. You can swap into the axe mode pretty regularly at any time just by pressing the R2 and triangle. So you can do that after an attack. And you can switch back to the sword mode by pressing the R2. So kind of what that looks like. I'll just play around with it here. Some of my combos that I do just from muscle memory. And then you slam on the monster with your elemental discharge. Go back to the round slash to get the guard point. Charge. Charge again. This slam does a ton of damage, by the way, so try to land that on the monster's head. But there's a lot you can do. Just sit in practice mode and play around with some of these combos. I know it's kind of a lot going on here, but you know, there's a lot to this weapon. It's fairly in-depth. But anyway, that pretty much covers the moveset for Charge Blade. We'll get back over into the scripted portion of the video, but hopefully this is helpful. Let's talk about armor sets and skills and different Charge Blade types you want to go for. All right, Scripted Bouse is back. So there are essentially 2 types of Charge Blade. You have Charge Blades with impact files and Charge Blades with element files. Impact is the way to go 99% of the time. Element file charge blades aren't terrible, but you'd essentially need an element file charge blade for each different element in the game to have them be useful. Plus, with an element charge blade, your files don't deal stun damage, and as such, will not KO the monster. They just do an elemental burst. As for armor skills to go for, attack up is never bad, but what you really want is the artillery skill. This increases the power of every attack you do that uses a charge blade file, which, if you're playing Charge Blade correctly, is going to be most of your attacks. It's pretty much a must for an optimal Charge Blade set. Just make sure that you don't confuse it with heavy artillery. Another skill that's incredibly useful that I don't have featured here is Razor Sharp. I don't have access to it with where I'm at in the game, but essentially, Razor Sharp decreases the speed at which your weapon loses sharpness, and with the way the Charge Blade eats through whetstones, it's pretty much a must-have in my opinion. But holy cow, folks, this was a way longer video than I thought it would be. Charge Blade is a pretty robust and complicated weapon, and I wanted to make sure that I got everything in, so I apologize for the length of the video, but if you made it to the end, Hopefully you learned a lot and you found the video helpful. If you hated it, well, I guess just go watch a Rex or Gaijin Hunter. If you enjoyed it though, leave a like down below and I'll consider making more weapon guides. If you're new here, make sure to get subscribed and join my Discord by clicking the link in the description below so you can hook up with all sorts of like-minded hunters on all platforms. Until next time though, I'm BouseFeenux. I'll see you at the next one, and as always, thank you so much for watching.